The air in the execution chamber hung thick with a silence that pressed down on every witness, a silence broken only by the faint rhythmic whir of machinery. Strapped to a gurney, a blue-rimmed mask obscuring his face, Gregory Hunt, a man who had become a spiritual beacon to others on death row, prepared for a death unlike any other. This was not the electric chair, nor the familiar lethal injection. This was nitrogen gas, a method pioneered by Alabama, and a procedure whose very humaneness was fiercely debated even as the final seconds ticked away. His execution was more than the state's ultimate punishment for a brutal 1988 murder. It was a stark, unfolding drama that laid bare the complex, often contradictory facets of justice, redemption, and the relentless search for a humane way to end a life. What transpired in those final moments, and the decades of legal battles and personal transformation that led to them, would leave an indelible mark on the debate over capital punishment in America. The sterile confines of Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama, became the stage for a grim, historic event. Gregory Hunt, a 60-year-old man convicted of the 1988 murder of Karen Lane, was led into the execution chamber. As he was secured to the gurney, a blue-rimmed mask placed over his face, observers noted his composure. In his final conscious moments, Hunt offered a thumbs up and a peace sign, gestures that would later be etched into the memory of those present, a quiet defiance or perhaps a final message of peace amidst the gravity of the situation. But this story isn't just about a controversial method, it's about the man strapped to that gurney, Gregory Hunt. 4 years within the grim confines of death row, Hunt was known by a different title, death row's pastor. He was a spiritual anchor, leading a small congregation of condemned men, offering guidance and solace in a place where hope often seemed to vanish. The profound contrast between his role as a spiritual leader and his impending fate created a deeply unsettling paradox. A man condemned for heinous crimes was simultaneously a source of hope and direction for others in the most desperate of circumstances. This duality immediately humanized Hunt beyond his criminal label, reframing his execution as a loss not just for him, but for a vulnerable community. Hunt was convicted for the brutal 1988 murder and robbery of Karen Lane. He admitted to these acts, attributing them to a life consumed by drug abuse. Yet, a crucial element of his conviction, the charge of sexually abusing Lane, was vehemently denied by Hunt, a denial that would cast a long shadow over his case until his very last breath. This point of contention, where he accepted some culpability but fiercely rejected another, aggravating charge, immediately introduced a profound uncertainty into the narrative, compelling a closer examination of the full truth behind his conviction. In the days leading up to his execution, advocacy groups launched a desperate plea for mercy. 1. They delivered a petition to Governor 𝗚𝗏𝘗, arguing that Hunt's execution would devastate the death row community, robbing them of their spiritual guide. 1. The argument was clear, heartbreakingly simple. If Hunt was executed, the people of Alabama's death row will lose their pastor. 1. Stay with us as we unravel the complex layers of this case, from the disputed evidence to the final, chilling moments. If you find this story as compelling as we do, hit that like button now and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth investigations that challenge your perceptions. The conviction of Gregory Hunt, particularly the sexual abuse charge, was plagued by questions that persisted for decades, whispering doubts into the very fabric of justice. A pivotal piece of evidence presented at his trial involved human cells found on a broom at the crime scene. 1. The prosecution, in a move that would later become a focal point of controversy, inferred these cells were from cervical mucus, a detail that likely weighed heavily on the jury, painting a picture of a more heinous crime. 1. But then, a shocking revelation emerged, one that could unravel the very foundation of that inference. Hunt later discovered that Karen Lane had undergone a hysterectomy, meaning she no longer had a cervix. 1. Think about that for a moment. A key piece of evidence, used to secure a capital murder conviction, was based on an inference that was medically impossible. The Alabama Attorney General's office later conceded that while the pathologist didn't testify falsely, the prosecutor's inference may have been inaccurate, though they maintained other evidence still pointed to sexual assault. 1. This wasn't just a minor detail. It was a crack in the bedrock of the case, leaving a lingering, unsettling question. How much did this inaccurate inference sway the jury towards a death sentence? Further complicating the case was the jury's decision itself. Hunt was convicted by an 11-1 vote for the death penalty. 1. In most states across the U.S., a unanimous jury decision is required for a death sentence, meaning a single dissenting juror could prevent such an outcome. But Alabama, along with Florida, stands as one of only 2 states that require merely 10 jurors to favor a death penalty sentence. This legal mechanism, allowing for capital punishment without complete consensus among jurors, is a profound ethical dilemma. It implicitly asks, how just is a system where one juror's doubt is insufficient to spare a life? Does it truly represent the conscience of the community when even one voice of dissent is overridden? The petition to Governor 𝗏𝗏 also brought to light concerns about ineffective counsel during Hunt's trial, citing insufficient state funding for capital defense attorneys. Point 1 Imagine your life hanging in the balance, and your defense is hampered by a lack of resources. Additionally, Hunt's traumatic childhood was presented as a mitigating factor that may not have been adequately considered. Point 1 These points collectively underscored broader societal and systemic issues, suggesting that the path to death row can be tragically paved by disadvantage and systemic neglect. These lingering questions, these shadows of doubt, set the stage for a final act that would once again put Alabama's justice system under the microscope. If these revelations have sparked questions for you, if they've made you pause and think, please share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Let's start a crucial conversation about what justice truly means. On June 10, 2025, Gregory Hunt faced an execution method that remains at the forefront of the capital punishment debate: nitrogen gas asphyxiation. Alabama holds the controversial distinction of being the first state to carry out an execution using this method. Hunt's execution marked the 5th time Alabama had used nitrogen gas, and the 6th instance nationwide. The state asserts that this method provides a quick and humane death by depriving the inmate of oxygen. But critics vehemently dispute this claim, pointing to the observed physical reactions during these executions as chilling evidence that the process is far from painless. The final moments of Gregory Hunt were observed with a chilling precision, a scene that will haunt those who witnessed it. Strapped to a gurney, his face covered by a blue-rimmed mask, Hunt chose to offer no final words. Instead, in a poignant, nonverbal communication that spoke volumes, he appeared to give a thumbs-up sign and a peace sign with his fingers. These gestures, particularly the peace sign, could be interpreted in multiple ways: a final message to his death row congregation, a statement of defiance, or perhaps a silent assertion of his disputed innocence regarding the sexual abuse charge. This powerful act added immense emotional weight and ambiguity to his last moments, leaving observers to ponder his ultimate intentions. As the nitrogen gas began to flow, Hunt's body reacted. At approximately 5:57 p.m., he briefly shook, gasped, and raised his head from the gurney. A moan was heard around 5:59 p.m., followed by his feet raising. He then took a series of 4 or more gasping breaths, punctuated by long pauses, before all visible movement ceased after 6:05 p.m. These shaking movements and gasps, while described by the state as expected, were precisely what critics cited as proof that the method does not provide a quick death. Gregory Hunt was pronounced dead at 6:26 p.m. On that same day, another execution by lethal injection occurred in Florida, underscoring the ongoing, complex reality of capital punishment across the United States. The very fact that Hunt himself selected nitrogen gas over lethal injection or the electric chair, making this choice before Alabama had even fully developed the procedures for the method, adds another layer of unsettling irony. How truly informed can a choice of execution method be when the procedure itself is still in its nascent stages and its precise effects largely unknown? This situation highlights the ongoing ethical and practical challenges faced by states as they seek to continue capital punishment, particularly as traditional methods become increasingly difficult to implement, leading to the adoption of untested alternatives. The execution of Gregory Hunt left an undeniable void within the death row community he served. As advocates had warned, the men on death row lost their pastor, their spiritual guide who had offered solace and direction in their darkest hours. Point 1 His absence undoubtedly created a profound spiritual vacuum for those facing their own mortality, highlighting the unexpected and unique impact of his life, even within the confines of incarceration. It's a heartbreaking reminder that even in the most desolate places, human connection and spiritual guidance can flourish, only to be extinguished by the state. Hunt's execution also placed a spotlight on the broader landscape of capital punishment in Alabama. This was the 23rd execution overseen by Governor 𝗚𝗏𝗏 during her tenure, a number that positions her second only to Bob Riley in modern Alabama history for the sheer volume of executions carried out under their watch. Point 1 This statistic is not merely a numerical fact. It underscores a consistent state policy regarding executions and invites a broader examination of the role of executive power in these life-and-death decisions. It compels a consideration of the implications of such a high execution rate for the state's judicial philosophy, suggesting a firm, unwavering stance on capital punishment. The case of Gregory Hunt, from the disputed evidence and the non-unanimous jury vote to the last-minute appeals and the controversial method of execution, encapsulates the enduring, multifaceted debate surrounding capital punishment. It is a narrative that transcends simple questions of guilt or innocence, delving into the complexities of justice, mercy, rehabilitation, the profound role of faith, and the very nature of state power. This case serves as a powerful illustration of the ethical dilemmas and societal values constantly at play when a state takes a human life. What are your thoughts on Gregory Hunt's case? On the use of nitrogen gas as an execution method? Do you believe justice was fully served, or do the lingering doubts and the story of his redemption complicate the picture? Share your perspective in the comments below. We want to hear from you. If this deep dive resonated with you, if it made you think, question, and feel, please subscribe to our channel for more stories that challenge, inform, and inspire. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. And most importantly, share this video to keep this vital conversation going. Your engagement helps us bring these critical stories to light and ensures that these complex issues are not forgotten.